Chapter 18. The County Jail. "Don't say anything," Francie said, rushing into the sheriff's office. "Oh, hello, Frenchie," Astrid said. "Rydell here." Francie turned to her aunts and tried to keep her voice steady. "Don't tell him anything. You should have a lawyer present." "Now, miss," the sheriff said, "nobody's under arrest, yet." He leaned back in his swivel chair. "I'm just asking a few questions." "Even so, they should have their lawyer present," Francie said, straining to remember her lines from the show. "You can't hold them if you aren't going to charge them." That wasn't bad, Francie thought. That had been one of her lines. "I'm sorry, but the evidence points in their direction, especially your Aunt Astrid. She was found standing over the dead body of Buck Thorne holding the presumed murder weapon," the sheriff said. "A spatula." "You're saying the murder weapon was a spatula?" Francie asked. "Well, no, but the hot dish it was in may have been." "What?" "There is some evidence that Buck was poisoned." "Poisoned?" Francie exhaled. "Still, I hardly think that being in possession of a spatula is incriminating. Just because she's holding a spatula doesn't make her a murderer. It could have come from anyone's hot dish." Francie couldn't believe that she had just uttered that sentence, and in all seriousness. Or, in fact, that any of this was actually taking place. The sheriff consulted a piece of paper. "We got the ham and pea, the hamburger rice, the tater tot, the chicken wild rice, and that one with the potato chips on it. Yet the spatula had tuna noodle on it, which is what was on Buck's plate. The tuna noodle, that's the one we don't got. We sent that spatula in for testing." "I see. The case of the poisoned spatula," Francie said. Man, why hadn't she had lines on like these in her show? "Don't you ever watch crime shows?" she asked. "The person left holding the murder weapon is never the one who actually did it." "That's on TV, miss," the sheriff said, "and this is real life." "No, it isn't," Francie cried. "It can't be. It's too bizarre. Now, listen. Nothing my aunts say can be used against them. You realize that, right? You have to let them call their lawyer." "I told them they could call their lawyer. They said they'd wait for you." "We'll all wait for their lawyer," Francie said, and pulled out her phone. "Auntie, who should I call?" she asked Jeanette. "Franklin Sage, honey. He's in the book." "Mr. Sage is not in the office," the voice on the other end said. It sounded as if it belonged to a 14-year-old. "It's Wednesday." "Okay," Francie said. "It's Wednesday, whatever that means. Can you, or better yet, can I reach him on his cell phone?" "I doubt it," the 14-year-old said. "This is pretty serious. One of his clients has been incarcerated." "Maybe you should take him to the hospital. There's a 24-hour clinic here you can take him to." "Incarcerated. In jail." "Oh!" The young voice came back. "I see. Well, I can leave a message for him, Mr. Sage, and he'll call you in the morning." "No," Francie said. "Not morning. Now." "The thing is, he's fishing. But, Nels just came in. Should I send him over?" "Nels?" "The office intern. He's the only one around today. I think he just got back from fishing, too. Wednesday's fishing day." "Fine," Francie said. "Whatever." What kind of rinky-dink operation was this? And who was this office intern, Nels? She pictured some skinny, geeky guy fresh off the debate team. Great, Francie thought glumly. I look forward to meeting him. While she waited, she checked on the messages on her phone. Her grandfather had called looking for her. He'd left several messages in his deep, authoritative voice, each gaining in intensity. First frustration, then worry, then anger, and finally a threatening, "I know where you are and don't think I won't come find you." He'd get over it, she hoped. Nels blew in like a sudden westerly gale, blowsy and fresh, not skinny or geeky. In fact, she recognized him. It was Neptune, although today he looked more like Adonis, wearing a rumpled shirt and dirty shorts and running his hand through his curls that, honestly, had shaped themselves into a completely ridiculous head of hat hair. He seemed too young to work in a law office, Francie thought, but then she was too young to be a detective, wasn't she? Everyone in this town seemed too young for their jobs, except the sheriff. Nell swiped his hand on his shorts and offered it to her. His hand was warm and firm and large and comforting, and she felt tears spring to her eyes. She fought them back, reminding herself, "I'm the big detective from New York." "You must be Francesca," Nell said. "Your aunts have talked about you, and you're—" "Not a big detective," Francie hurried to finish his sentence. "But don't tell my aunt's friends. They firmly want to believe they know an important detective from New York." Nels laughed. "Got it," he said. His laugh fit well with the westerly gale impression, also blowsy and fresh. In the same way he entered, in a whoosh, he had Astrid and Jeanette released simply by speaking a few quiet words to the sheriff. "You're out on Enchantment, right? Can I give you a lift?" The idea was so appealing, Francie almost said yes before realizing she had driven and that her aunt's boat waited at the landing. "My aunt's car is here and their boat is—" Astrid interrupted. "Oh, if you and Francie could stop and pick up a few things at the store, then Jeanette and I could go straight home and start some dinner for all of us. I'm sure you could borrow a boat from Sandy, so you don't have to launch yours, Nels." "Auntie, I don't think—" Francie began. "I could contribute some fresh sunnies," Nels offered. "Ooh," Astrid squeaked. "Wouldn't that be lovely?" She scrawled a few items on a scrap of paper she plucked off the sheriff's desk and handed it to Nels. "Pretty weird to send your lawyer to the grocery store for you, but this whole day had been surreal. And when Jeanette said, 'Hand over the keys, sweetie,' Francie handed them to her without protest. Then, because Francie must have stood somewhat dazed in the middle of the station, Nell steered her gently toward the door, his warm hand on the small of her back.